both these shows, Your Friends and Neighbors and The Studio, are both great examples of what Apple TV Plus is doing so great right now, just in the TV landscape, right? And to me, they're really doing stuff that no other streaming service or, channel, network, whatever you want to say, or whatever HBO is, right? Cable channel. No other ones are really doing, at least to the degree that Apple TV Plus is doing right now. And I'll get to HBO in just a little bit because I want to talk about them. I'm not saying that they don't do any of this anymore. But what I'm talking about is greenlighting original projects from creative talent, mainly writers in this case, like a Jonathan Tropper in Your Friends and Neighbors, and then, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg from The Studio, right? These are names, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg have done a lot of stuff, Jonathan Tropper with Banshee and a few other shows, I believe, in his repertoire or in his resume there. These are guys, who had kind of original ideas or, have adapted stuff before, but they're creatives, right? And both of these shows, Your Friends and Neighbors, an original concept from Jonathan Tropper, and The Studio, an original idea, from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Obviously, The Studio is kind of meta. It's depicting a lot of this stuff. It's not like, a really original concept for a show or anything like that. But it is an original idea. They had that they wanted to depict a lot of this stuff and comment a little bit on Hollywood and try to do this from kind of a metafictional, lens of having Seth Rogen and Ike Barinholtz and Catherine Hahn, play these fictional characters basically in the real world, right? Just changing names and of studios and stuff like that to Continental and stuff like this, right? And so both of these shows to me that are on right now just really represent what is kind of rare in TV these days, and movies a whole nother conversation, but specifically TV, right? It's franchises, it's this already existing IP, right? Where you have reboots, spin-offs, franchise shows, all these adaptations, right? That kind of goes into that. So there's just a lot of, that, and that's really the main focus right now in TV, just countless ones, right? Like just countless adaptation of books right now. Video games is the big one. Of course, The Last of Us just premiered this week as well, season 2, right? So adaptations, massive focus right now, and all these spin-offs like The Walking Dead is doing, AMC is doing right now, and I'll get to HBO, but they have another Game of Thrones spin-off coming up this year, so anyways, and that's not to say that, of course, Apple TV Plus is not doing the same thing. Murderbot I've seen was Alexander Skarsgård. That's an adaptation that's coming out in the next month or so, I think. That's another one of their new shows. Silo, Foundation on Apple TV. There's countless. Bad Monkey with Vince Vaughn last year's an adaptation. Anyways, tons of stuff that Apple TV Plus is also doing in terms of existing IPs, adaptations, and this kind of thing. Although having said that, I don't know that they're doing a lot of like spin-offs of stuff like that. I don't think so, right? Because they haven't. I guess they're maybe not old enough to have these, already existing IPs that are there and, making countless spin-offs of. Are they making one of Ted Lasso, though, already? I'm trying to remember. But anyways, they're guilty of that, too. But the difference is that they also have these shows. They have Your Friends and Neighbors, The Studio, Severance, right? Another original idea. What was the other? I was just thinking of another show as well that was from there. Sugar, right? Sugar last year from Mark Protosevich, I think is his name, and then Sam Catlin maybe is the showrunner. But anyways, Mark Protosevich, the creator of Sugar, one of my favorite shows of last year as well. So they have a lot of these original projects from creative talent that have come in here and really have become, to me, the hotbed of this original, stories and original projects that they're able to greenlight here and put forward, and onto their streaming services. So obviously the reason why here is that they're able to take risks that other studios and streaming services are not, right? And to be fair, I think there is a conversation to be had of whether they can't take the risks, or they also are just kind of adverse to taking the risks and want to go the safe route. But anyways, financially speaking, right, Apple has this money printing machine, which is the smartphones, the tablets and computers and everything else, right? That's a part of their, company and their profit line. That's apart from their streaming service, right? Apple TV Plus, I think, is like operating at a huge loss, obviously, right? So far, it'll take years for it to even turn profit, right? But that doesn't matter, right? It exists basically to push the Apple name, to be competitive in the kind of streaming world, obviously, that is huge right now. And it's able to kind of put that product placement out there for their products, and basically every one of their shows. People are using iPhones very clearly. People are using MacBooks very clearly and stuff like this, right? So it helps them, but it certainly is not there focused on making profit for Apple Inc., right, the company. And so this is why they're able to take some risks on maybe these original projects that other streaming services and studios are not able to, financially speaking. But like I said, I think the other thing of this is I think they do legitimately care, or at least they brought in some people who care about having these original projects and recognizing these creative voices and these talents and bringing them in to the point where other studios and streaming services don't right now, for some reason. Again, financially, yeah, maybe they're not able to take the same risks, but I think it's also that they don't really want to take them. Right? Like, they're not really interested in that right now. They'd rather greenlight another spin-off or another franchise or another, a reboot, another, show that was popular in the 80s or, whatever, right? They'd rather do that right now because that's just kind of the trend and that's what they are wanting to do. And so it's kind of this combination where they have the financial means to do it, and I think they have some people who legitimately care about this and want to, really kind of try to push for a difference. And they're doing that with shows like Your Friends and Neighbors, The Studio, Sugar, Severance, right? And if you look at these shows, and this is the thing that always gets me, and I've talked about this on the channel, maybe I got to stop talking about it because I feel like I just go into this same, rant every time, but it's true. And that is, this idea that these original projects take time. Right? They take time to take off and really find success. And, I think Severance fits that mold, right? You saw how successful that show was this year. I mean, unbelievable success. Really owned the first quarter, maybe even the first third, you want to call it, of this year. Like, it was the show on TV. And it's an original concept, right, from Dan Erickson. And so I think it's these, and season 1 was not received that way, by the way, right? Like, it was obviously very positive reception, and it took some time, especially those 3 years between seasons, right? It was able to kind of gain that traction, gain that support. And I think this is what you see with good original projects. It takes a little bit more time for them to really catch on. But once they do, man, they really catch on and they can really be successful for a long time. I mean, I always use Breaking Bad as the example, right? Obviously, it took place in a different time than we are right now, but I think it really fits the mold here where it came out, the first couple seasons, not that big, right? Like, the show really didn't become, hugely popular until, like, the last season, basically, of the show. And, then it went on Netflix and enjoyed that success of people watching on Netflix, all the stuff that comes with that, how popular it is now. And it was also just a really good show, right? To be the best show of all time. And so that obviously helps. And that's where the success of Severance comes from, too, because that's a really good show. Some people would say the best show on TV right now. And so I think there is something to that where you give it some time, they do really catch on. Whereas, the reboot of this show from the 80s that people recognize, and you have this actor who we haven't seen in years coming back to play this character. Oh, I gotta watch that, right? And you get that immediate click of those of people that are nostalgic or want to relive that. Maybe you get that immediate click, you get those streams, but then you do a season 2. I'm thinking of the Fraser reboot show, right? That they did, and I think that just recently got canceled after the second season because they got some support for season 1 and then it just fell off, and that's what seems to happen. Is okay. You get a little bit more of that nostalgia. You get to see Fraser Crane again, right? Kelsey Grammer in the role maybe. And then you're like, oh, well, okay, like it was good and that's okay, like, right? And then you just kind of tune out and that's what happens. And so, yeah, they got the immediate clicks on Paramount Plus, I believe it was on. And now they have nothing to really show for it. They had to cancel the show. And so that's, again, maybe that's just, obviously there's other things that go into that. But that is what, you kind of see right now with this stuff. So I want to give credit to Apple TV Plus. I think they're doing a really great job with this. Again, they do. Already existing IPs, adaptations, all that stuff. But they're also doing the original projects. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. And before I talk about HBO, just briefly here, obviously the Vince Gilligan show, which is like the mammoth of all, original projects from creative voices that I'm talking about. That show is still to come later this year. Hopefully, I would think in the fall, late summer in the fall, maybe something like that. We haven't heard, a lot about it in a little bit. So it does sound like it's definitely going to be coming this year for sure, but we're not sure exactly when. But that will be coming. And again, like I said, like that is the original project from a creator like that they already gave a 2-season pickup immediately before even a frame of it was shot, I believe. So yeah, you got to give Apple credit in that regard. And man, that is my most anticipated show of the year. So really looking forward to that. And obviously there'll be more, right? I think there'll be even more that we don't even know about yet that could probably still come out this year for Apple. That again are original projects that will see this trend continue. So yeah, I can't praise them enough. I really can't. I think they're doing a really great job, and I really respect that stuff because again, I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, right? I'm watching the spin-offs of The Walking Dead. I like some of this stuff, but I do really prefer the original projects. And to see something your Friends and Neighbors, The Studio, Severance, Sugar, that'll always excite me, right? To see something like that that's unique and see something original. I just think that's, it's more interesting, more entertaining, more enjoyable for me.